Welcome to a new episode of the Perspective Shift podcast. This is episode 14, and we will be talking about purpose. In modern society, individuality is the norm, and we are always asking ourselves who we are as people and what we are meant to do in life. And purpose is something that is very subjective, so we will be talking about our opinions on it and how we both perceive it. And we will also discuss if we actually need a purpose in the first place in order to have a fulfilled and joyful life. So we hope you enjoyed this one, and let's get into it. So we have talked about purpose on multiple occasions before privately, but we never went on details actually. I know it's a word that is very subjective. So how do you define it for you? What does purpose mean for you?
Honestly, I'm not a big fan of the word purpose, especially not the way that people define it nowadays. I happen to be a believer of. All right, wait. Let's look at it from a different perspective. You know how people always talk about your purpose in life, the reason why you're living, and so on and so on. I'm not a believer of that. I don't believe that we're born with a specific purpose or that we have a specific purpose in life. If you want to look at it in the ancient ways, I would say that our purpose in life is to survive, survivability. But
So you can say that is basically the objective meaning for it.
kind of subjectively, I don't have a definition for purpose, like I said, because I'm not a big fan of the word itself. I prefer to call it a set of skills, because you can always ask yourself what is your purpose, and then you can always follow that up with a why is that your purpose, and then why did you choose this, and then so on and so on and so on, and then you're gonna get to nothing. So for me, that leads to like, okay, you don't have a purpose, you just have a set of skills that you've cultivated through time that are related to something that you enjoy doing, whether you enjoy doing it from the beginning or later on. And then at some point, you start identifying that as a purpose for you. And instead of purpose, for example, personally, what I like to use is a set of goals that are either long term or short term. As an example, I always take the most common example, I guess, which is financially freedom. But that's not a purpose, that's just the goal that you've got. And then you can align that with different purposes, we're going to call it that will lead you to get to that goal. So I friction it, deconstruct it a little bit, and then
I kind of follow what you're saying. I agree with some parts, but for me, purpose is still a bit different. I think, oof, it's. I do see purpose that it is related to the talents that you have. I mean, it's not that your purpose is set in stone. Okay, I am Anas. I was born to do this, and this is my purpose. It's not that, but like, we are born with different brain wirings, and we lean towards certain things that we enjoy doing and other things that we don't enjoy at all. And I think your purpose is tied to the things that you enjoy doing because you need to derive some joy and happiness from these things. And at the same time, they need to serve a certain goal that is selfless, that is for other people, that is for this planet, that is something you are giving. So it is like cultivating the talents that you have to do something that is selfless for other beings, to do good in the world. That's for me what purpose actually is. It's something that you see yourself doing for the rest of your life and enjoy doing, and you see results in it in the world.
if you're gonna like if you're gonna take your perspective there, and we take the definition of purpose is something that's everlasting.
Yeah,
Right.
sure.
Okay, now I can ask, the question is, imagine that you've chosen or you found your purpose in life, and then some big major shifts happen in your life, whether it's an event or circumstances or life, just life, and then you switched your purpose. You know what I mean? Something happened, and then whatever it is that you were working on got destroyed. You lost your interest, but then your purpose switched, which means that if a purpose is everlasting, then how was that your purpose in the first place?
You can,
Because I know what you're talking about, and I agree with it. Like I said, for me, I set it as a set of goals that are long term, and then I deconstruct it like, okay, minor steps, make it progressive, make it sustainable, make sure that you're surviving, which is humanity purpose, technically, or every species purpose. And then you can add to that the moral or the more philosophical point of view, which is you're doing something to return to society or to your ward or to your community or whatever. But I still don't look at any of these as if they were purposes. Because, like I said, purpose for me is something that's everlasting. Purpose for me is something that you're living to do this.
Yeah.
But if anything, if something extremely major happened, you're not really living to do this anymore.
I think you can find a way. Okay, I'm gonna give an example. Let's say you are a musician, you're a guitarist, you really enjoy playing music, you have always enjoyed it, and you get joy when you are playing music in front of all people, and you are influencing other people to be musicians and to feel good when they listen to your music. This can be your purpose. And then one day something happens to your hands and you just can't play music anymore. You can find another way that is related to your talents. Maybe you can tutor other people. Maybe you can.
Okay, but that's not purpose anymore.
But it can still be purpose.
We're going back to the point. It's not purpose. It's your talents. It's your set of skills.
But you can still.
It's what you enjoy doing in life.
You are still deriving the purpose of helping other people becoming musicians.
Look at it like this.
You know?
So this is one of the other reasons why I don't like the word purpose. It's too rigid.
It doesn't have to be.
The word purpose, in the definition of what purpose is or how people perceive the word purpose, something that's rigid. Which is why I've said at the start as well that I don't like the way people define it nowadays. Since the definition is too rigid, you can't play around it. So in the sense of like, I'm going to go along with you and say, all right, so for example, I've decided that my purpose is that I want to help other people, or I want to improve some people's life, or help my community or my friends. If something happens to me and I was still able to do that, I would still do that. But I can still always play around it and add and adjust to it a little bit. But the second, at least that's how I look at it. That's the subjective definition of purpose for me. The second that I decide to call it a purpose, that's when it for me becomes too rigid. Like this is your purpose and you're living only for this, but you're not actually living only. You're living because you're doing this because you enjoy it. You're doing this because it gives you certain emotions. It gives you a certain confidence.
I think maybe clarity.
Clarity, whatever you want to call it. But you're not doing it because it's your purpose. You're doing it because there's other factors at hand that make it either like make it joyful, make you grateful for the fact that you're doing it, but you're not just doing it for the sake of it being your purpose. That's one of the main reasons why I don't like the word purpose. That's why I like to define it as like, okay, these are my goals. These are the things that I enjoy doing. These are the things that make me feel grounded, grateful, clear, conscious, hardworking. These are the things that drive me, but they're not really my purposes. They're just my goals. They're just my plans for the future. These are the things that I'm going to function on. And instead of calling them a purpose and make it sound too rigid, and make it sound as if like, okay, I'm the only one who was born in this world with this specific talent who can do this thing, and that's why it's my purpose and my calling.
I guess it's all.
I find it too shallow.
I think it's all about how you perceive it, how you look at it. Like I told you, for me, it's more like about your passions and clarity. That it's actually clear to you what you want to do. What do you want to continue doing for years to come until you are on your deathbed and you are deriving joy and happiness from that.
But, okay, so even that I can argue there. Even if you have something that you want to do for the rest of your life, if something were to happen and take you out of that spot, you might decide not to do it anymore.
Yeah, you need to adjust somehow.
Exactly.
You need to adjust.
Which is why, for me personally, I found that what works the best is having a goal that you can reach through multiple different routes.
Sure, yeah.
And then you can take whatever route you want.
I agree with that.
Something happened, you can take a different route maybe. Or when you fail, you can try again or go for a different route.
You need to find a way to adjust.
You just have your goals that are set in stone for you, that you're sure that this is what you want in your life and you're just working toward these goals. Instead of being like, okay, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. Because then you're going to get stuck to something that's external. And if it collapses, and you lose the external thing for whatever the reason that is, then you're gonna have a big problem.
Actually, like I heard multiple stories about stuff like that. I do agree with you on that part. Like there was a story about I heard it in the podcast. I don't remember what her name is or who she is, but she was a violinist and she thought that being a violinist is her purpose, but then she had a problem with her hands. She couldn't play the violin anymore, and then she became a scientist working on I think she became a neuroscientist, and she realized that this is also her purpose. So it doesn't have to be one thing that you're fixating on. You know, like you can
Exactly.
find a way to adjust. I think it's about mentality in a way.
You can look at it like this. Like I don't know who we're talking about. I don't know her circumstances.
I actually don't remember.
If I'm gonna make some assumptions here, which is kind of a bit cocky for me, but I'm still gonna go for it. Say she was a violent, and she didn't look at being a violinist as her goal, as her purpose. Rather, she looked at it as like, okay, I want to bring enjoyment and advancement into people's life. So when her career fell apart, she found something else that
way.
leads to that.
Yeah, this is what I mean.
Exactly. So if you're gonna use the term purpose, I don't have a problem with the word purpose. I have a problem most with the way people define it nowadays. You can switch it around or you can play. That's why I use the term where I said before that you can play around it as long as you know what your ultimate goal is.
Yeah, I think the ultimate goal, like let's say I want to say my purpose is to help other people. How am I going to do that?
You can choose exactly.
There's a lot of things, but yeah. So sure, it is related to certain goals. They are the ultimate goals. My goal is to help other people. My goal is to build this part of the community, whatever it is. There are a lot of different ways to do it, but it has to be certain thing that you enjoy doing. If you don't enjoy doing, I don't think you can keep up. I don't know. I think it's very important to.
In that case, we can go back to the same things that we've talked about before, which is you don't enjoy doing anything at the beginning.
Yeah,
Start enjoying it later. So like regardless, you have to stick up with something
for a while.
That's gonna serve your purpose or your bigger goal or your ultimate goal, whatever you want to call it, and then wait till it becomes enjoyable. And then when it's enjoyable, that's when you know that you can make it sustainable and stick with it for a
you keep on doing it.
Yeah.
So this brings me to a question, which is like, the whole thing about purpose. I don't think people in older societies thought about it much. They didn't have time for it. But in the modern society, we always talk about individuality and finding who I am and purpose. So why do you think that is? I mean, we've probably talked about it on multiple occasions before, like that certain things being tied to modern society where we have more luxuries and everything. So my guess is that is why, because we have more free time and everything. That's why we think about individuality. But do you have a different perspective on that?
I think since we've got since humanity or human beings overall, we grew so much. We've got almost at like 10 billion, I guess, 9.5 billion people. You've got a lot of people that are similar, and you've got social media, which makes everything seem same. So you have all these people like, say, if you decide to do this, then you're gonna definitely find somebody else who's doing it or doing it better than you, or a lot of people belong to that community, and then you're gonna realize that okay, this is nothing special. Say people start looking for their individuality to find out that okay, like this is society and this is me, and this is me for the sake of being me. This is not me because this is what society does. Since we've got this globalization and a bigger number of people, which means that the probability that you're gonna find other people who are doing the same thing as you or do something similar or like
More likely.
more likely, exactly, we start seeking something that's going to make us
Special.
distinguished or easier distinguishable from other human beings, and that's going to make us stand out a little bit. But at the same time, I feel like since I think people are realizing more and more that we're all wandering in this life and we're kind of all lost and no one knows anything about anything in the first place, I think that's why people started considering and focusing a bit more on purpose or goal or calling and individuality to give you a sense of
Uniqueness.
not only uniqueness, but something that's going to drive you to survive this world, the way life works. And if you don't have that, then you kind of just, like you're facing a pain and it doesn't have a meaning.
Yeah.
If the pain doesn't have a meaning and you don't have something that you're working toward, and the pain that doesn't have a meaning is going to crush you. But once you have something that's going to be like, okay, regardless of the pain, this is what I'm aiming for and this is what I'm working toward, that's going to make the pain more sustainable. Sorry, not more sustainable, but more tolerable, because you've got something that you're working toward. But if you're just standing there lost and then, like I said, just like meaningless pain, then the pain is going to end up crushing you down.
Yeah, that kind of makes sense. And I don't think it's tied to the ego in a way, but not necessarily in a negative way. But this makes me think like, do we actually need a certain purpose or calling to even feel joy and happiness in the first place? Like, is it a must to have our goals clear and our destination marked to feel sustainable joy? Or are there maybe other ways? Like, do you think if someone doesn't have certain things that he is working on, will he have sustainable happiness, or is that not possible?
I think it is. It
How so?
depends on your values, metrics, the equations that you use to define happiness for you, and the way that you're living. So look at it like this. At the end of the day, there's always something that we're working toward, right? Regardless whether we're aware of that or not. Even so, like say, even if you're just going to your 9 to 5 job, that's something that you're kind of progressing in. You're getting better at the job, whether
Sure.
you realize it or not.
Yeah.
There's always this sense of progression in our life, always, regardless. Even if you're just sitting at home, literally playing video games and staring at a wall the whole time, there is a sense of progression, always. But the difference here comes with, I look at parents, for example. If they're just staying stay-at-home parents were like caring for their kids and so on, their kids bring them joy. Just them being in the presence of their kids bring them joy, even if they're not progressing in any other area of their life. Based on
That's
their metrics, the metrics is like, okay, I am a joyful person when I get to spend time with my kids, and they're spending a lot of time with their kids. They're joyful. There's the metrics, and if you look at it from a different perspective as well, spending time with your kids is kind of progress because your kids are growing up and they're learning things from you.
and you're doing something selfless as well.
Exactly. So that also gives you a sense of progression. But it's the difference is whether you are aware of that or not, and the metrics that you're using in relation to your circumstances that could give you the joy that you're looking
I mean, I think I see it differently here. I think if you don't have clear goals, if you don't have purpose, however you want to see it, I don't think you can have sustainable happiness. The way I see it is that,
for. Okay, if you're gonna talk about that, then I can also argue in the sense of like happiness is not sustainable in the.
but I'll tell you what I mean. Like, let's say I have certain clear goals that are not selfish, that are more selfless, and I enjoy doing at least a little bit. I might not be feeling happy at the moment, but just when I think about these goals that I'm working on, these big goals, and the things that will make me stronger and better, and I'm just this sense of progress, and that I'm doing it not just for me, but for other people as well. In the long run, in the long term, I have sustainable happiness because I can always go back to that and feel better about everything. But if I don't have clear goals, if I don't know what I'm doing, I'm just aimlessly following things, then you might feel happy in certain moments, but when you're feeling bad, you're probably going to feel even worse because you don't have things that you're working toward and clear goals
You
in
can
mind.
look at it like this. Imagine you have a goal and you're not aware of that goal. So like we're gonna go back to the example of parents because I find that to be the easiest example, I guess. And say one of your goals or one of your values or core values is raise up your kids the best that you could, and you're not aware of that goal, yet you're still doing that. But the goal is not clear, but the goal is somewhere inside of you, and it's in your subconscious, and you're doing it without even being aware that you're doing it because it's something that you enjoy doing, and it's gonna bring you joy and sustainability. On the other hand, you can also argue that we always talk about the long run. We always talk about the past. But I'm becoming more and more a firm believer of there is no longer run because you literally die any moment. So when we're going to talk about something that's in the longer run, you're talking about something that doesn't exist yet. and something that you're not aware what's going to happen in the future. Same for the past because it already happened. So there's nothing. The past doesn't exist. The past already happened, and the future does not exist because it has yet to happen. But if you look at, you just focus on the present and you just focus on what you're doing right now, then the future doesn't really matter that much because you don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, but I think it matters. What exactly are you doing right now? Like,
But that's also related to your metrics and values. And
there is a big difference if you are wasting your days, consistently wasting your days, or if you are someone who have clear goals and every day you're working on.
sure, I get that 100%. But I guess the difference here is, which is I'm also coming to realize because I was of similar opinion than you as well. But I'm just realizing that it depends. Those are the metrics that we use ourselves. Other people might not have these metrics. Other people might have the metric of like, all right, I'm happy as long as I can work a simple job and I'm able to afford for myself and for my kids.
Yeah, I guess that's why it is subjective. That's why it is
Exactly.
subjective.
That's where the metrics comes into play. So you can't be like, all right, if you're wasting your, like what's wasting your life to you could be the ultimate goal
Sure.
for somebody else. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's why it's
I guess
subjective.
that's where things differ. And add to that as well, like the same thing that I mentioned a bit ago is that you're not always aware. You don't always know if the other people are aware of their goals or not. Sometimes they're working toward them subconsciously without them being aware of them.
I guess this is because of my own story. It is my subjective lens on the topic that I remember when I didn't have clearer goals as I do now, and I was just, doing whatever. And I don't know what I want to do in the future. Nothing was clear. And I was mostly depressed and I felt moments of happiness, but they were really far in between. And I rarely had joy. I rarely smiled. But once my goals started to become more clear and I work towards things that are bigger picture, that's when I started to feel happy more often than not. And just my mood in general became much more positive, I guess. So it is my own subjective way of looking at it, I guess. But I kind of agree with you that what I see as purpose could be something completely different for someone else. So that is why I think it is a modern society issue, because back then people didn't really have the luxury or the time to even think about something like that. They had to survive every day. So
Not only this, but I also look at like they didn't have the globalization of listening to others people opinions, which is gonna like plant a seed in their brains that they're gonna start. Like you wouldn't think about purpose unless you've heard the term purpose from somebody else.
of
You know
course,
what I mean?
yeah.
And then when somebody talks about it and somebody else finds out, like that seems to be true. I've never thought about this. And then they're gonna share it on social media, and then the term, the concept is gonna expand and expand and expand and expand and gets to everybody. But in the past, if somebody had this concept, it could have only been spread through word of mouth. And it wouldn't reach the other parts of the world. It would just reach the small community that you're living in.
And this is actually the negative part of certain terms that we have in modern society. Like you hear on social media, oh, you have to find your purpose, otherwise you're not going to feel happy. And then people start to fix it. Oh, I need to find my purpose right now. What are my goals? What are and you get stressed and you maybe follow something you think it is your purpose, but then at some point you realize it wasn't. And this is where things can backfire, I guess, when you fixate too much on a certain word. So we go back to the first thing that you talked about how you don't like the word purpose, and I'm kind of seeing that slowly more and more. I still have a bit different opinion on it, but I see how it can actually be bad for someone and backfire if they fixate too much on a certain term. Not only purpose, a lot of different things
Oh,
as well.
definitely. Definitely.
Okay, but regardless of what purpose means for everyone, it is subjective. How does a person get closer to what they actually want to do in life? Like if someone is just lost and they are not, maybe they have certain goals but they are not aware of them yet, how do you get even closer? So we're both people who didn't really know what exactly we want to do in the future, and we are, I guess, getting closer and closer to that. So how would you describe the experience, I guess, to not feeling lost anymore?
What worked for me personally was, I guess, is something that you hear a lot. Just sit with yourself, all on your own, and be as brutally honest with yourself as you can. If you know that you're slacking, you If you're slacking, you're doing something that doesn't make you happy. You know it. The fact is whether you're willing to admit it to yourself. I know that for years I was slacking and semi on autopilot, just going through life and rolling through life. I was aware of that, but I never admitted it to myself, and I kept on pushing it deeper and deeper inside of me. And then the day came where I was like, it's actually fucking true. I've wasted years. I haven't done much. I have this and this. And then you start becoming more aware of it. That can only happen when you decide to sit with yourself and be as brutally honest as you can. And then from there on, when you start, once you start admitting the place that you're in life right now, you can from there on start defining where you want to go. So, like for me, for example, like I said, took a lot of meditation, if you want to call it, maybe self awareness, maybe presence with myself, till I've gotten to the point where I could admit a lot of things. And then from there on, I started asking myself the questions: okay, where do I want to go? What do I want to do? And I started building goals, putting goals. I don't know, whatever you want to call them, purposes, holding in life, and started working on deconstructing them in the sense of like, okay, this is my goal. Then what could I do to get there? What are the smaller steps? And of course, I think that's something that a lot of people never don't keep in mind. And I've mentioned before, which is what Nietzsche said. I've talked about this like in a couple of episodes ago. He has why can bear almost anyhow, which is then once you start having your goals, even if you're not sure if they're actually your goals or not, but once you start writing your goals, the most important thing that you've got to do is write the list of whys. And you always have to go back to your list of why and always improve on it. Always see what that this why doesn't really seem to align or sit with me that well. Okay, how can I adapt it? How can I change it? What could be the deeper why to why I want this? And then with time, you start becoming more and more clear. Of course, you got to add the experience to that. Like for me, it took me, I think I've been working on these things for the past 2.5 years. That's right now.
I think it's approximately the same.
Exactly. And then even right now, I can not say for sure that the goals that I've got are my ultimate goals. I know that they're goals that I want in my life, that I want to achieve in my life, or get as close as I can to them.
But it's all about getting closer. Things will get clear with time, I would say.
Even now, even after 2.5 years, I still cannot say whether they are the ultimate goals
Sure,
for me
yeah.
or not, because I know I've realized that there's so many goals that change throughout the
Yeah,
time. So I can
absolutely.
never be sure whether this is the ultimate goal or not. But I know that
It's
these are the
about,
goals that I've got for now.
I always see it, it's about getting closer. So to actually start getting closer, you need to be more self aware and have less distraction around you, whether it's social media, internet, whatever, like all of these different voices that influence what you think you are. So you get rid of that and you get closer to yourself through different mediums, which can be, you already mentioned meditation, but I can't not include psychedelics in here. I mean, for me personally, before I knew anything about meditation and I wasn't really self aware, psychedelics helped me get closer to realize what do I want, who am I in the first place, and then I started to implement meditation and trying to minimize the distractions around me and getting more close to my childhood self and realizing what do I enjoy doing, what derives meaning for me, and there's a lot of different ways to do that. But for me personally, what worked the best is meditation and psychedelics. So yeah, it can be a different thing for different people, but basically it's all about getting closer to who you are and figuring out what you want without asking other people. That's the thing. Like it doesn't matter what other people say. They can give you a hint or give you tips, but they don't know you deeply. Nobody knows you as much as you know yourself.
Oh, definitely, definitely.
So you need to get closer to yourself somehow. Journaling also works. It doesn't. It never. I never tried journaling, but I know it works for many people.
It's I also look at it like it's also important to have a bit of trust between you and yourself. I don't know who said that example, but I quite like it. They said that imagine if I told you that, all right, starting tomorrow we're gonna meet up at the gym 5 days a week, every day at this hour, and then you show up tomorrow at the gym and I'm not there, and then the day after happens and I'm not there, and the day after also comes, And then you also go, and I'm not there. And then you call me. I'm like, oh, sorry, I'm going to be running a little bit late. And then I don't show up. After a certain amount of time, you're going to stop trusting my words. And then you're not going to have trust in me anymore. Why? Because I've said that we're going to do this, and then I didn't stick up to my words.
Yeah, that's a good way.
So when you start, which is, I guess, a common
Promise, like keeping your
problem
promises,
nowadays.
I guess.
Exactly. I look at it, I relate it to between you and yourself as well. So when you set a small goal for yourself, which is like, okay, today I'm going to do this. And then you end up not doing it. It's like, I'm going to take it in a little bit of a gaming metaphor here. But you've got this HP bar, this health bar. And every time you don't keep a promise between you and yourself, you're going to lose some HP. Yeah. And then for a certain amount of time, you don't do it. And every time you do it, of course, it goes up. It's like you're taking damage or you're healing yourself. Yeah. And at some point, when it reaches the lower ends, like the trust between you and yourself is dead. So whatever you say, whatever you decide that you want to do, you're not going to have that. You can always be questioning it. Yeah. So you have to start building it back up slowly to the point where you say, like, all right, this is what I want. And then you know that this is what you want. Why? Because you've got this trust build up between you and yourself.
I totally relate to that because I used to always break my promises. Like, honestly, even break it with other people. So if I was breaking my promise with other people, why would I keep them with other people? So I was just breaking promises altogether. And I would tell myself I would do this, I wouldn't do it, or I wouldn't do this and I would still do it. It took me a really long time to fix the trust, to get the pieces together and start trusting myself again. And now I know that I've become very careful that I say, okay, I'm not going to do this anymore. Am I going to promise myself or not? If I feel like I'm not ready, I'm not going to promise.
We've talked about this when I told like, right, I'm not going to say that I'm going to start doing this or stop doing this. I will always choose the words carefully of like, I'm going to consider
it. Yeah.
Start doing this or not do this anymore. And then when I say the word that, all right, I'm not going to do this anymore, or I'm going to do this anymore, I want to know that I'm going to stick up to this promise between me and myself. So I don't end up hurting the trust that I've got.
Yeah. So now, like, I'm very careful if I want to trust, not trust, if I want to promise another person something or promise myself, the word has a big weight.
Oh, definitely.
So I need to think about it carefully and, okay, do I want to say the word or not? And if I say the word, I have to stick with it. And I actually stick with it now because I have stacked proof, I guess.
You've learned the weight of it. And
I have stacked proof that now I can keep my promises more and more and I can stick with them. So I become more responsible. When do I use the word, I guess?
Yeah, that's I feel like that's an important step to have, or realization to have in life, because I can also relate. And we've talked about it before many times.
It's something like actually only the recent months where I've actually thought about it even more deeply and realized, okay, now I can actually keep my promises. Yeah. Okay, so I think that covers everything about purpose. And thank you so much for watching.